Got it.
So that guy who just said got it, that's Michael Hawkeye Herman, and he's had over 50 years of performing experience. He's a personal friend of mine and my mentor in blues, and I feel very lucky to have him here today. But I want to tell you a little bit more about him. Over 50 years, that's right. And he has solo 3 hit theatrical productions, including video documentaries and CDs about the River Road, and he's sought out by people all over the world for blues, and is an amazing blues educator as well. Helped found the Mississippi Valley Blues Society, Blues in the Schools, and is an ambassador for the blues all over the world. And thank you so much for being here, Michael. I really appreciate it. It's so wonderful to be with you.
Good to see your smiling face.
Likewise, I'm sure. So he's all the way in Oregon, and I'm still in Iowa. He also grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, which is right across the river from Davenport, Iowa. So he's Hawkeye, from the Hawkeye state.
I was actually born, my mom insisted on me being born in Iowa. So I was taken, I was delivered in Iowa, and my birth certificate, I'm proud to say, is an Iowa native, Scott County.
Oh my gosh, I knew that, but because she never wanted to go over the bridge after she moved to Rock, I didn't think she ever did. I didn't think you were born in Iowa, so that's so funny. That's a little bit I didn't know.
Really, Hawkeye is an Iowa native.
It sure is. And you told me once about how you got your nickname. Do you remember that story? Can you tell us that story?
Oh, sure. I have had a late, dear, great friend and mentor, Haskell Cool Papa Sadler, and he was an Oakland, San Francisco blues man of great renown, and he's in the Bay Area Blues Hall of Fame. And back when I was just getting started, I grew up in the Quad Cities and attended the University of Iowa. And in 1968, I moved to the Bay Area with flowers in my hair to become pursue my career as a blues musician in music and theater. And I started getting involved in the blues scene. And after a few gigs with Cool Papa, everybody referred to him as, he said I needed a nickname. I needed a blues moniker. And then he and his band started trying out names on me, Slim Hips, all kinds of things,
Slim Hips, I love that.
Realized that if I didn't come up with something quickly, I might be pegged with a nickname for the rest of my life that I didn't particularly like. So within about a week or two, I came up with the nickname Hawkeye. I just figured, well, there's not many Hawkeyes in California, and I would be Michael Hawkeye Herman. And I went to the gig that night and I said, Papa, I got a nickname. And he said, what's that? And I said, Hawkeye. And he said, Hawkeye, all right. We went on stage to play the gig, and on the first tune, he called me up to the microphone and said, we call him Hawkeye, y'all. And I've been Hawkeye ever since.
That's so great. I love it. So how did you, a boy from Iowa and Illinois and the Quad Cities, how did you first get introduced to the blues?
Well,
come to you, because it kind of comes to everybody in different ways.
In many different ways. The way it came to me was initially, I can tell you that I always had a propensity for music and a love and liking for music. My mom worked as a bookkeeper when I was a little baby, and I was born in 1945. So I'm not actually a baby boomer. I'm a war baby. And as I was growing up, when I was a little kid, my mom, because she had a job, she wanted to work. She was very independent. She hired a British war bride to take care of me during the day. Nowadays, you'd call that a nanny. My dad would pick that woman up. I called her Auntie Carlson. She was very close to me because she thought it was very special. We had the same birthday. And I was her ward. And she would come to the house. My dad would pick her up in the morning, bring her to the house, and then take my mom to work. And she would care for me all day, like a nanny. And she would, from the time I was 6 months old. She would rock me in her arms and sing to me. And I heard all kinds of British tunes. I can remember 4 or 5 years old, her singing these wartime tunes and old British tunes, etc. And I automatically got a love and a liking and a calming sensation from music. As I got older, she cared for me until I was about 5 or 6 years old. And then my mom had another child, my younger sister, and my mom decided that she should stay home and take care of all three of the kids. So I was on my own to run wild in the neighborhood, pretty much. And I always had a liking for music, and this is very important memory to me. I remember when we didn't have television. I remember listening to the radio a lot. We gathered around the radio, laid on the floor, listened to the radio, listened to big band music, and we listened to the Lone Ranger and Gangbusters and all kinds of things like that. This was in like 1948, 49, 50. Then around 1951, 52, we got a TV, and we were one of the first people in the neighborhood to get a TV, and everybody would come over in the afternoon. Adults and kids would come over to watch Howdy Doody and other TV shows, because not everybody had a TV. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that The Tonight Show and popular music was then being broadcast on television in the evening. And I had to be in bed at 8 o'clock, but how I came to music in general and understood that I had a love and a liking for it, my mom and dad recognized the fact that the world stopped for me when I heard music that I liked. They could see the power that music had. No matter what I was doing, I would stop and listen to the music. And I had a propensity for quickly learning lyrics as well. And an example of that is when The Tonight Show first came on with Steve Allen in the very early 1950s. I had to be in bed at 8 o'clock, but that show didn't come on until late at night, 10 o'clock in the Midwest, 10:30. And I would be upstairs in my bedroom poking around, not really asleep yet. And if somebody like Louis Armstrong or Roy Clark or any famous musician was appearing on The Tonight Show, my mom or dad would go to the bottom of the stairs and holler up to me in my bedroom, "Michael, come downstairs. Louis Armstrong is on." And I would come down and sit down in front of the TV, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old. And I'd watch the music and listen to the music. And then the minute it was over, I would have to go back. They'd send me back up to bed. So I'm mentioning that because my parents recognized that music had a special place for me.
But you talked to me about having a little transistor radio that you could dial in, because we want to get to the blues part.
I'm getting there. So I had a strong background in music, and when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I bought a ukulele, which I actually still have and is hanging on the wall, for $1 or $1.50 at a bazaar, a church bazaar. And I started to play songs on the ukulele. And because it was not rock and roll was not popular yet, all the ukulele songbooks had big band and swing tunes in them, because that's what was popular. And I recognized it and knew all that music because it was pre-rock and roll. So in those songbooks, I learned all kinds of difficult chord songs when I was only 10 or 11 years old from these songbooks, because I didn't know that there were songs like blues that only had 3 chords or folk songs that only had 2 chords. I just learned what was ever in front of me. There were no songbooks for rock and roll or even folk music at that time. By the 1950s, folk music happened. So now, to the point that you're talking about, when I was 11 or 12 years old, I had a paper out with the Des Moines Register. And for being a good paper boy, I won making my route collections on time, turning in the money on time. I won a 2-transistor radio, and it was as big as a pack of cigarettes, about that big, and it had 1 earplug. And
I had one of those.
I won it for free. It was, at that time, it was the highest tech thing you could have,
Yeah.
unless you spent a little bit more money and you got a 10 transistor radio. But this had 2 transistors. And it didn't take me long to find out that if I turned it on in the Midwest where we lived at night, I could get stations all the way from California and Del Rio, Texas, all the way up to Toronto and New York City. But in the daytime, no, because of the interference of the sun. So late at night, I would be up in my room listening to the radio. And then I figured out if I took the back off of the radio and connected a wire to where the antenna was, I could get clear channel music from Shreveport and Memphis and Dallas, all over. And to the point was, one night I always did this in the dark, thinking that because I used the earplug in my ear.
Right.
And a funny thing that I got to tell you as a sidelight, I took a book that I bought at a junk shop. I bought a thick book for about 10 cents, and I used a razor blade and I cut out the center of the book in the shape of the radio. And I could fit the radio inside that book, and I could take it to school. And in class, I could turn on the radio and put my head down on the desk. And my teacher thought I was taking a break, but I was actually listening to music or the World Series or whatever. So anyway, I would listen when at 10 or 11 years old, 1956 or 1956, yeah, about 1956. I would listen to the radio late at night in my bedroom with the lights off, and my parents thought I was asleep because I was using the earphone, and I would scan the dial on the radio for music. And I listened to all kinds of music. At that time in 56, rock and roll was just starting to come in. And one night, I tuned in a station in Chicago called WVON. It was the Black African-American station, I think the only one in Chicago at that time. And I heard a song called Killing Floor by Killing Floor by Wolf. I'll never forget this. And I was lying on the bed with my earphone, and the next thing I knew, I was dancing around in the dark in my bedroom, bumping into the dresser and all kinds of things, but I was uncontrollably dancing. And when the tune ended, I fell back on the bed, and I think I might have even said out loud, "What was that?" It was the blues.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, boy, I've got to find out more about that. Long story short, within a year, I'd saved up from my paper route. I saved up $17 to go to a pawn shop and buy my first absolutely horrible guitar, but it was all I could afford. And I started out and I bought an album for 99 cents. The first album I ever bought was Big Bill Broonzy, Josh White, and Leadbelly. It was called Three of a Kind, and they're not three of a kind. And I remember listening to Big Bill Broonzy thinking, this guy has two other guitar players with him, but it was just him playing solo. And when I realized that, I could sort of see my future laid out in front of me in terms of the connection with blues music. The other thing that I will mention is that there is a connection between the chordal aspects, minor sounding of blues music, and Jewish liturgical music, which I had been trained in from my very earliest days.
Right.
And my parents weren't musicians, but they liked to dance to big band music in the living room and put on 78s and dance and listen to big band music. And then there was Jewish liturgical music is also very soulful and also contains something else that's very important to blues besides the minor chording sounds and the soulfulness, is the use of melisma. Melisma is giving more than one note to a syllable. The classic,
kind of like a dip song.
Well, yeah, it's popular. It's in great use in Jewish liturgical music, and it also exists in African music and African American music. And the best example I could give you of melisma is Florence Henderson. When she sings the Star Spangled Banner, she goes, "Oh, say, can you see?" And Aretha will go, "Oh." one syllable, multiple notes.
Yes.
Oh, say, can you see? Those are melismas, taking one syllable and adding and embellishing them with more notes. Aretha is the classic example, and Whitney Houston, all great soul singers, black and white, use melisma. So it was the combination of the minor sounding, the soulfulness of the music, and the use of melismas that I was familiar with that brought the blues home to me. And I can say
it's in you and it's got to come out.
and right. That's exactly what John Lee Hooker said, and it was the truth. Now, there's two quotes about the blues that say it all better than I could. Willie Dixon, who wrote Killin' Floor, actually wrote a real lot of the most familiar blues songs that Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf sang, and many others have sung, including Coco Taylor, like Wang Dang Doodle. Willie Dixon said, "The blues are the true facts of life expressed in words and song, inspiration, feelings, and understanding." Now, one more. I love this one. Duke Ellington said, "I just used the energy that it takes to pout and wrote some blues songs." So now we're bordering on the healing aspects of the blues. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg there.
Yeah.
When you think about what Duke Ellington said in one short sentence, I used the energy that it takes to pout, and I wrote some blues songs.
Yeah. Yep.
So somebody might say, somebody who's a looks at music classically might say, but Duke Ellington wrote jazz. Wow. He wrote, songs that have 32 bars and not 12 bars and lots of chords. But the truth is that when he says I wrote some blues, he's talking about writing songs under the definition that Willie Dixon gave: the true facts of life, understanding, feeling. Blues is a feeling. And being able to put feeling into words. Art decorates space. Music decorates time. And my parents recognized from the very beginning that when music that affected me came on, time stopped for me.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so amazing that you say it like that and that they noticed it and they saw that. I remember when I was a kid listening to Night on Bald Mountain with the headphones on, laying on the floor in the living room and just like conjuring all the visuals that would have in it. And also any other kind of music that really moves me. But blues is special. There's something about it that's special. And I want you to talk about, what does the phrase blues as a healer mean to you? What is blues as a healer? Because I know it healed me, and I could talk about that for hours, but
I can tell you that blues is a healing not only for the audience, but also for the performers.
Absolutely.
I also, when I was at the University of Iowa, I was already a folk singer. When I was in high school, I was fortunate enough to be in a folk trio called, we called ourselves Peter, Paul, and Zelda. And we performed at the high schools all over the Quad Cities and beyond for big crowds, 2,000 kids in the high school. And I had no idea that it would be years and years and years before I ever played before thousands of people again. And I was only 16 or 17, but there was always something about that music that got to me. And my mom would hear me practice. And there was a couple of things that from outside of me, outside of myself, is that the discipline that I had seemed natural to me. But my mom would call me down to dinner, and when I'd come down to dinner, she'd say, "Michael, how can you do that?" And I said, "Do what?" And she said, "You've been playing the same song for 2.5 hours ever since I came home from work." until I got dinner ready. You've been playing the same song. And I said to her, I didn't get it right until just before you called me down to dinner. And she rolled her eyes, but didn't respond. She just rolled her eyes. And now I understand it was, oh my God, I think this kid is going to be a musician.
Yeah, she may be entitled to to reparations.
Yeah, she really didn't. She really didn't see that until much later. And I'm going to jump forward a little bit about what it means to me. That's what you're asking me about.
Yes.
I was not ever in bands, so to speak. I was always a folk blues musician, and I played other kinds of music later on, including jazz and klezmer, anything to make a living, because you got to make a living. Robert Johnson could play polkas, because no musician's going to turn down money for a Polish wedding just because they're a blues musician,
right?
Unless you want to starve. So anyway, I was a freshman at the University of Iowa, and I played at the various coffee houses, the Mill, and various places in Iowa City at that time. And I attended a University of Iowa Hawkeye band practice. I heard them practicing in their practice room, and I just went in there and sat down in the first row, and I was weeping by the second tune. The sound of the music wasn't necessarily blues. It was the power of music itself. Yeah. Rolled over me like a wave, and I wept like a baby. And I was weak when I left the room. It didn't inspire me to become a big band, marching band musician. It made me understand even more the depth and power and healing that music has. That's why I mentioned that time stopped. Yeah. For me, when I play music, time stops. And music is not, the wonderful thing about blues music is that it's not only a healing for the musician, it's a healing for the audience and the musician itself. And you can tell when a musician is connected to the music that they're singing, and they're singing a story about themselves. That's why, blues music doesn't go, ooh, ooh, baby, baby, ooh, ooh, baby, baby. Blues talks about the life experiences that we know. And while I'm saying that, Tanya, I would like to also share with people, anybody that says to me, blues is depressing music. I can only listen to so much blues. I always respond to that by saying, you haven't listened to enough blues.
Yeah, that's what I say.
The truth of the matter is, blues is a healing. I'm going to be using this word numerous times, I can tell, in the rest of our interview, but it's about release. You release love, and you release your frustrations, your guilt. You let go of all those things that you embrace, that you think make you who you are, but many of them are torturing you. Blues is a release. And so the stories that you tell are also a release. And so I always have chosen blues music that I can relate to. Yeah. I'm fortunately married to a wonderful woman for 53 years. So there's a wonderful blues song that says, I called for water and she brought me gasoline. Some people sing that song. I don't.
No. No. I do sing Drown in My Own Tears, because one night I did call home and I didn't know where he was. And I thought, what's going to happen to me if he's dead by the side of the road? And so when I sing that song, I can feel that feeling, because I've had that feeling of wondering, is he going to come home?
The connection is,
yeah.
The connection is there.
Right.
And so I always select material, and I think most blues musicians do, and that's why we're blues musicians. I always select material that I can relate to, or I write songs about what I know.
Yeah.
And then I have no problem telling the story and singing the song and losing myself in the music.
Yeah.
Now,
that's a big part of it too, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that I talk about in healing is releasing your feelings, even your negative feelings, because holding on to them is detrimental to your health. And when you're singing about something terrible that happened, even if it's a sad blues song, and there's other kinds of blues songs, you're releasing that energy, you're getting rid of it, so you don't have to deal with it, pressing it down and it being oppressive to you.
And not only that, but some people embrace those issues. They embrace their grief. They embrace their negativity because it's who they think they are,
Right.
rather than releasing it. So blues is what feelings sound like. I think it was Little Walter is the one who said he has a song called Blues is a Feeling. And how can, brevity is the soul of wit. I don't think you could say that in any briefer words than that. And what you think you are, what you think you become. So I would only say to you that I am a scholar, student of the music, and always. And I can tell you that one of the most common, I'm going back to the point of people that say blues is depressing music. Blues is about hope. For the same reason you go to church and sing gospel music, to lift your spirits and to release yourself. In blues music, you sing about your problems in order to put them out into the universe and to feel better about yourself. And the most common blues verse that's quoted in many, many blues songs is this: the sun's going to shine in my back door someday. The wind's going to change and blow my blues away. I can't tell you how many songs use the line, and it's used so much that we don't even know it's traditional. We don't even know who initially came up with that line, but the sun's going to shine in my back door someday is what the blues is about.
Absolutely.
It's not about digging a trench and falling into it. It's about lifting your spirits up, and it's all about release.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's so beautiful. That's what it feels like to perform it too. For me, when I'm done doing, a performance, maybe I'm doing 3 sets, I feel clean. I feel like I've, released all that, and I don't have to do it anymore. And after a while, if I haven't done anything for a while, if I haven't done any performances for, like over COVID was a long time, and I was starting to feel like really stopped up, not that way, but just like there's too much emotion and there's no place to put it. So that's one of the things that I think is so important. You talked about that feeling of the band playing and coming to tears. That happened to me when Sam and I went to Luther and sat in on the choir rehearsal. I came out of there crying.
The power of music to take you
all
away.
Those voices
To take you away. I know it's angelic, it's heavenly, and it's definitely a healing in itself, and it's a healing for the performer, and it's a healing for the audience if they allow themselves to fall into the story and place themselves within the story. That's the amazing thing about the aspect of storytelling. It's very important that you and your myself and all the people that tune into your healing programs and presentations understand that it's very important that they share their story with others, because not only is that a release for them, but it allows other people to relate. There are other people that have the same stories. We are all unique, but we all share life experiences, and it's a healing in itself to know that there are people that go through what you go through, and that they work their way through it, and they are working their way through it in a variety of ways. But music, and blues in particular, is a healer, because blues, I think, actually was initiated as a healing.
Yes.
Think about yourself.
This day, let's get down this row. Let's make sure that we can finish out what they're going to make us do today, and let's do it And let's sing. Let's sing while we're doing it so that we can get through it.
Rather than pout, sing about it.
That's right. Sing it out. Don't pout, sing it out.
use that negative energy in a positive way to sing about your problems and release them into the universe in the same way that we are meant to release our love into the universe, because we are love.
Well, that's so beautiful. I've been talking a lot lately about what happens when you release the negative feelings, because the universe abhors a vacuum. Well, what rushes in? Love, peace, creativity, joy, serenity, bliss. All those things come rushing in when you release the negativity.
Peace and happiness are an inside job.
Yeah, they are.
You cannot, you can't, if you seek peace and happiness outside of yourself, you won't find it. But you must seek peace and happiness within yourself, because it's there. Yeah. We're all born with it. And happiness, I think one of the things, I've never been able to quite put it into a song yet, but happiness is not a destination up the road. Happiness is in the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's being able to take that step forward.
So the journey for me.
I think we should write a blues song.
We're working on it.
Where's the ukulele?
My wife Willette reminded me that I stated earlier on that my parents recognized very early on that I had a propensity, and time stopped for me when I gave myself over to music, but they didn't expect me to be a musician. Because my mom thought that you have to be Yasha Heifetz or Yo-Yo Ma to be a musician. And so I made the conscious choice. And I won't go into the depth of the background of the story, but I can tell you that when I sought a life outside of music because of peer pressure and thinking I needed to do what other people were doing, and having a home in the suburbs with a 2-car garage and a 9-to-5 job, etc. And then all of a sudden that phrase that I uttered to you, due to consequences in my life that were making me question my life at the university as a student, the phrase, happiness is not a destination up the road, happiness is in the journey. That's when I realized that I would rather be happy than wealthy and frustrated. And I made the decision that for better or worse, I was going to become a musician. And my parents were not that pleased about it, because they were worried about my well-being and being able to make a living. Sure. But I will say that my mom gave me a difficult time about it, and she would say, what do I tell you, my friends? That you do? And I say, tell them I'm a musician and that I'm very happy. But then sometime later, after I'd already left for California in 1968, and I came back to the Quad Cities and was doing concerts and performing at blues festivals, etc., my mom came to see me perform in concert at the North Scott High School auditorium in a big venue, and she sat way in the back. And I told her beforehand, I said, Mom, you can sit right down front. There's nobody here yet. You can sit right very front row center. And she said, no, I want to sit in the back row. I want to watch your audience. And so on the way home from that concert, she also got to sell my CDs and tapes, which made her very happy to be able to see that the green is coming in. The green is coming in. Yes, this is paying off. And on the way home, you know the area, so I'll describe it in detail. We were riding in silence from North Scott High School back to the Illinois side of the river, and my mom was looking out the window in silence. And she said, out of the silence, out of nowhere, she turned to me, and as I was driving the car across the bridge over the Mississippi River back to Illinois. She said, Michael, you work really hard. Which is what she's not saying is, I thought you were a bum.
Yeah, right.
You're a musician, you stay up late, you carouse, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So when she said, Michael, you work really hard,
Yeah.
What she wasn't saying was very important to me.
Yeah.
Then she looked out the window again, and there was a long silence. And she turned to me and said something that I'll never forget. And it gives me chills when I think about it because it's such a Midwestern platitude. She turned to me and said, I thought I was going to bust my buttons.
Oh, she's so proud.
Well, up until that moment, it was a big question mark. What is he doing with his life?
Right.
What is he doing with his life? And there were never any questions after that. My mom would cut out articles about B.B. King and Bob Marley and all kinds of musicians from the local newspapers, and she would mail them to me in California. She wanted me to see that she understood, because she was a great fan of music.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that would call me down and say, Michael, Louis Armstrong's on TV. Yeah. So she understood the power of music, but it didn't seem like a viable way for your child to make a living as a creative artist. But I somehow managed to spend the last 55 years doing it.
Yeah, and can you understand, folks, why Michael is an award-winning educator as well? I mean, you've learned so much just listening to him talk today about his experience with blues. And you did say you had a ukulele there, didn't you?
I do have a ukulele. I do have a ukulele here. Did you say you had another? Did we answer the two questions that you had?
Yeah. What does blues as a healer mean to you, and how did you get started in the blues? You've answered all the questions. Now you got to play.
Okay. The last thing I'll say, I'd only worry. Worry is a misuse of energy and imagination.
It steals your future.
So if you can take that worry and pouting and grief and trouble in your life and polarize it and use it creatively and release it into the universe in a positive way by telling your story to other people. Doesn't have to be with a guitar. It can be with a pen. It can be with paints. But self-expression is release. And so I said to my wife last night, I think that the most important thing that I share with Tanya tomorrow is all centered around one word, and that's release. We release our love. We release our difficulties and our stories into the universe so that we cleanse ourselves and we find happiness and security and peace within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Oh, it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can tell those of your needs if you don't let it show. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Oh, it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Now Now if there is a load that you must bear, that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load. If you just call me, lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend and I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Now sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know there's always tomorrow. Sing along, lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend, I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. One time, lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend and I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You're gonna need somebody to lean on. You're gonna need somebody to lean on. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Yay! Thank you so much. What a treat. I got to tell everybody what a blessing you've been in my life.
Thank you. Ditto. So have you.
Huge blessing.
Thank you so much.
My mentor in blues, you and Gloria. I mean, honestly, I couldn't ask for better mentors in my life. You're just the best, and you're always so giving and so generous with your time. And I hesitated to call you about this for a while, and I thought, wait a minute, why am I not asking him to do this? So thank you so much.
This is what I do.
I know, that's what you do. So make sure y'all check out HawkeyeHerman.com, and you can learn even more about Hawkeye. And I can't wait to see you again in person. I don't know when that'll be, but
I couldn't ask for a better friend and student. Thank you for carrying on.
You're so welcome.
I'm very proud. I'm proud of you, your music, and your work.
Oh, thank you so much. I
love you all.
You. Wait right there.